wonderful panel assembled here today. We got to meet yesterday and go over some of the topics, and I'm really excited to see what they're bringing for you. I'm going to go around the virtual table here and introduce all of our panelists, and I'm going to invite them to speak a few words for themselves. Before I do that, once again, thank you to the YYC Data Convention, as well as our sponsors for making this possible, including my employer, Data IQ. So without further ado, I'm going to start with Michael Nar, who is the Supervisor of Data and Innovation at TransAlta. Michael, can I invite you to say a few words about yourself?
Yeah, hey, good morning, everyone. As Jinka mentioned, I'm a supervisor, lead a team of data science, data specialists, data scientists, data engineers, a whole bunch of different data people and software developers. And we really look at building innovative solutions to drive improvements in the business to really make more clean and sustainable energy. That's really what we do at the end of the day. My background is in electrical engineering. I worked in our power plants for a number of years before doing a lot of data things myself with our wind team, and then eventually leading a team that does a lot of that work now. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
All right. Thank you so much, Michael. Next up, I would like to invite Francina Sharma, who is the Manager of Business Intelligence at Blackline Safety. Francina, over to you for a few words.
Yeah, good morning. My name is Francina Sharma. I basically, at the moment, head the analytics division at Blackline Safety. First of all, I'd like to thank the organizers for this wonderful opportunity. It's a very well set program, and I'm really enjoying every single session that's going on here. And thank you for the opportunity for letting us share our viewpoints as well. For me, I've worked with data for over 20 years in different backgrounds, both pharmaceuticals, academics, and core IT projects. As you can see, data has evolved tremendously in the past 10 years, but then it's always interesting, and I really find it very interesting working with my invigorating team of analysts. We do a lot of work, we make a lot of people happy, and then we make sure that the workers return home safe every day, which is the motto of Blackline Safety. Thank you.
Thank you, Francina. And last but not least, we have Juan Carlos Cabanillas Leon, or JC. JC, I would love for you to say a few words. Sorry, folks, we may be having tech issues here. JC, can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. Please go ahead. Oh, we may have lost.
Good morning, everyone. Hello?
Yeah, JC, go ahead.
Hello?
I think we might be. Yeah, we're hearing you now.
Places to see where it's better.
Yes, we can hear you now. Please
yes.
go ahead.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Juan. Perfect. So my name is Juan Carlos, or JC, for my friends, and I currently lead the digital data and analytics team at TC Energy. Administration, commerce, and I have a master's and MBA in the University of Toronto, with specialization on strategy. My background includes system implementations, SAP, one of those. The
Oh no, we appear to be losing
Problem.
JC there. What we might do is we'll just to make sure that we keep this flowing, we'll continue with the session, and then as soon as JC is able to hop back in, we'll give him a chance to get a question as well as his introduction. So thank you all of the panelists for your introduction. We'll make sure that JC gets his as well. So as we get going, we want to start with the title of today's session. So in preparation for this, the panelists and myself, we were going through what would be a good title, and we settled on building high performance data teams as a specific title. And by giving that title, I know we're saying a lot in there. Looks like JC might be able to hop on here, so we'll continue, but we'll give him a chance. So let's start with defining really what we're talking here. So we're gonna actually define what we mean just to establish some baselines, and then we'll go through additional questions and qualifiers as to what that means. So let's start with building data teams. So depending on the organization you're in, depending on the context you're in, it might change what it means to you to have a data team. So first of all, let's put some qualifiers around it to what it means to have a data team. So for that, Francine, I'm going to invite you. Could you talk a little bit about what is the makeup of data team at your organization? How many people? What are some of the skill sets? Help us understand what does data team mean to you and your organization.
Yeah, sure. So basically, I would say that a data team essentially is a mix of everyone because it's very evident that data has evolved tremendously in the past 10 years. But the truth of the matter is that data, like all structures, will need a significant platform to grow and flourish. So to put in perspective, engineering and organizing data into workable structures is extremely important even today, as it was early on. So while AI ML operations actually, I would say, put a cherry on the top. That is, they give you all kinds of stuff that are innovative, make your juices run up to the end and stuff. You do need something to stand on. You need something that is usable every day, something that actually makes you carry on your day-to-day activities. And that is what data analytics does on a day-to-day basis. So, of course, we can use these basic structures to build more complicated operatives via augmented advanced methodologies, but we should not discount the importance of having and maintaining a strong foundation. Business intelligence department, data analytics, business intelligence, or whatever you may call, is the backbone of client operations and maintenance for the devices that the client actually, for the devices that the company actually sells to the clients and the clients are using. At Blackline Safety, we aim and focus on maintaining safety and compliance and ensuring that all workers actually return home safe from their work sites at the end of the day. So what this means is that each client, each worker, when they go out to the site, be it an oil and gas or construction or fire and hazmat service, whatever it is, when they take their devices over to their work site, they are taking the devices because they know that those devices are going to keep them safe, and they'll make sure that the compliance and everything else required for the organization is maintained, along with the connectedness of the device and the way that the device is actually sending out information and making sure that they are aware of whatever is going on in the field of safety and compliance. So, what do we do? We have a very integrated team. We have data engineers, we have SQL developers, we have data QA analysts, and we have data science professionals as well that work together as a team and trying to bring all of this connected safety to onto the client so that they can make data-driven, better business solutions. So in my team, I think, as is evidence with everybody else as well, that to build a high performing data team, you will need to have a blended team of all of these characteristics in place, because I think in a way we complement each other's capabilities and we bring everything into a wholesome picture on the table.
Thank you so much, Francina. That was a great insight into how you're going about building the data team over at Blackline Safety, and we'd love to kind of come back and explore that a little bit more. Michael, I'm going to ask you to weigh in. How does your team look over at TransAlta, and what are you guys doing to build a data team?
Yeah, that I'd say our data team is, and kind of mentioned in my introduction, we have a diverse group of people reporting to myself, from data engineers, people who are actually analyzing that data, whether it's actually, data science, kind of that broad term. Are they doing machine learning? Are they not doing machine learning? Just basic statistics, different things like that. We have different, we just call them like analytics engineers on our team. So we have a few people that are doing some of that work, as well as we have actual just software developers who are looking at trying to get those data results and insights to our customers. We look at definitely having a very rounded team, uh, just to have all these different individuals, people who have experience in a little bit of each of them, like our analytics engineers doing some data engineering. Our data engineers do like the most of it, but I mean, that's what allows them to have different effective conversations as we are trying to build these solutions and products. That's I'd say almost our core group, and reporting to myself, I think we were around 12-ish people. But then we have to think about the data team outside of us, like all the people in the business that we work with, whether they're engineers or whoever, how can we empower them in the organization, right? As data's quite broad around that. So we definitely look at putting together tools to enable other groups to make use and harness their data. So we really look at, we're not any roadblock, we're enablers, but then we're also helping to solve really key problems for them that they might not get to themselves. And that definitely will get into the conversation around that whole citizen piece at some point. But yeah, that's kind of how I would describe our makeup of a team.
Thank you so much, Michael. And I see that we have JC joined, so I'm going to tee him up in a short second. Just before I do that, a quick logistical item. My teammate from Dataiku, Stephanie, is posting there in the chat. So for the members of the audience, if there's any questions or you want to engage with us, maybe just one request I have for you is maybe put a Q in a parentheses in the chat so that like we can see a question coming in. Certainly, this would be a great interactive channel. We're going to keep monitoring that. So shout out to Stephanie, who is going to help us monitor, as well as the organizers here. But with that, I'm going to come back to JC. JC, I know with technical difficulties, we missed having your introduction. So if possible, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you to combine like our first question. We just started discussing what does it constitute to have a data team at the organization. Maybe if I can invite you to do your introduction and tell us a little bit more about what does your data team look like at TC Energy.
Sure, yes. First of all, good morning, everyone. My name is JC. For my friends or Juan Carlos, I currently lead the IS Digital Data Analytics teams at TC Energy. My apologies, first of all, for the technical difficulties. Had one of a very interesting week just dealing with a family emergency. I've been in this role with TC Energy for about a couple of years now. My team has three main streams of work. The first one is building our macro data lake architecture strategy, which is our data platform. It's about building data lakes in our AWS environment and try to orchestrate the ingestions to align at the architecture, at the developer, and at the business level. Our other second stream is our data science practice. We have not only a machine learning lab, but we look into the data science platform, and we do different education sessions and ideation sessions across the business. There's a strong liaison there with our innovation team and the different data analytics teams within the business. And then our third stream is around our big data/BI strategy. And also we are really aligned with the data strategy and data governance team. My background is in business, in commerce. I have also a master's, an MBA from University of Toronto, with a specialization on strategy. And I also done systems implementations, including SAP, and been on the data analytics area for the last 10 years, now building data analytics teams and data science teams. That's a bit of my background.
JC, that was wonderful. Thank you so much. You really killed two birds with one stone here. Great introduction, and thank you so much for telling us about your data team. So let's continue. The next portion that we want to explore is, performance means different things to different people. I mean, here at Dataiku, we support, this really the idea that our panelists spoke about, which is bringing a village together to raise a child or raise AI here, where you need different skill sets, you need different kind of understandings in different cultural contexts. So we definitely are seeing this in industry evolution. But if we now switch gears to the performance aspect of it, it can mean different things to different people. For some organizations, it's putting models in production. Some organizations is the number of downstream users, or some organizations, we're talking a lot about safety and real impact with compliance. So that could have a different metric altogether. So what I would love to do is I would love to have our panelists talk a little bit about what does high performance of a data team mean to them. So we're going to start in reverse order. JC, I'm going to invite you to start first. Could you talk a little bit about how do you define high performance for your team? What are some of the metrics? What are some of the KPIs that you talk about? And if you can give us a little bit idea as to why you chose them, why are they important to you?
Yes, sure, of course. So, for example, one big KPI that we have, and this is a very interesting topic, because from a data science perspective, data science is not a straight line, right? Machine learning is not a straight line. You start up a project from the data app, and it can take you anywhere and everywhere. So it is really hard to get a metric on number of machine learning use cases in production, for example, right? I think like from a lot of, there's a KPI that I read some time ago that is from 100% of ideas that came, about 85% to 90% are not really machine learning or not necessarily make it all the way to production because of data integrity, data quality, data access, or maybe it was a software development, maybe just a good statistical analysis is able to do the work, right? So it's a tricky one. For me, it's about how many ideas are coming through the pipelines and how can we speed up the process? How can we fail fast so that we are able to deploy and really put machine learning as a strategic enabler across our organization? No, I have a target of looking for cost reduction opportunities or ideas, for example. Another is around that every time there's a use case that comes to us, the business case, the business feasibility, the business assessment has to be crystal clear. Increasing productivity is not enough, right? At the end, it's about show me the money, show me the results, right? And the business needs to be accountable there. That is why a lot of the time for data science and analytics in general, the goal has to be shared. Every time there's a new ingestion coming to our data lake, there has to be a business case supporting that, right? And I mentioned that because a lot of the time there's this concept about readiness. Some of these use cases might be ready now, other might be ready in 6 months or a year because there can be an interdependency. There can be a data cleanup process, there can be a data integration, there can be a SaaS solution implementation. That is why it's really tricky. For me, it's about education. How are we continuing education sessions across the organization at different levels of technical expertise and leadership skills? The other one is about, again, I mentioned the cost reduction opportunities, and then it's about having ideas throughout the pipeline, right? How can we empower the different businesses to be able to give us those ideas?
Thank you, JC. I certainly picked up a couple of themes there, including starting with a good business use cases and really having dollars and cents driving that. I'm going to switch to another panelist to get their thoughts on the same topic. But once again, I just want to quick put a reminder to our audience. If you have questions, hopefully some of this is resonating with you. So if you have any questions, please feel free to put it along the way, and we'll do our best to kind of incorporate it. But again, I would love to hear from our other panelists. What are their thoughts on this idea of high performance? Maybe Francina, if I can come to you, what do you think it means for you and your organization to have a high performance, data team?
Yeah, I agree with what Juan said. You need a business case. You need a buy-in from the sponsor, executive sponsor, to be able to move things faster. But then also have to remember that not all AI projects actually turn into products. So you have to measure our ROI, and you have to see what you require and what is not as well. Um, in order to build a high performing team, you need to have like minded people working in a cohesive manner. Like each member of the team will need to give their best while learning from each other's skills. So you can have complementary skills within the organization, within the team itself. And you need to have an open minded platform for them to be able to share what they feel like sharing, which is when the real ideas will come into play. I agree, and we actually operate on the fail fast, do more kind of strategy, because the more you fail, the faster you fail, the better you get at getting to the right channel, into the right path to where it can lead the products. But ultimately, you have to remember that unless it's productized, a data science project is just a research project. And how many of those research projects can you actually put your money into when it comes to turning products, and when the company is actually looking for more and more products and the things? So these two things plus each member of the team will need to give their best. Like I said, when such a non-judgmental, welcome place of work is established, creativity and intuitive behavior flourishes, and the team member now feels that they are, they're having fun. Plus, they are free to give whatever advice they can. So definitely, they'll give a lot more than it is expected in a very structured kind of a format, and that's the kind of team that I have, and we work on a daily basis.
Thanks so much, Francina. There's a great insight. And if I picked up a theme there, you were talking a lot about ideas and creativity, which I think, JC, you touched on in your remarks as well. Michael, we're going to come to you for this comments on this, and then we'll kind of dive into some of the more specific topics. What are your thoughts on what does high performance mean for the data teams?
Sorry, muted. uh, I think definitely when you're looking at high performance, we're looking at it inward, and we're looking at it outward, right? I'm not going to talk too much around outward. I think JC and Francine definitely hit a nail around the business case. How are you pumping out that value for the company, and people are saying, yes, data is doing something for me. It's not just in Andrew Nippert's talk yesterday. It's not just theater around what people are presenting. Now, for the inward, looking at how your team itself functions within, what does that mean to be high performance, that they're able to churn out those outputs. And I think it's really around how do you have an environment where people can collaborate and they feel safe to make those mistakes, right? We talk about that fail fast, but it's like, yes, it's one thing to say, okay, it didn't work out, but then how do you now iterate on that? How do you now take those learnings to the rest of your team? And you say, oh, hey, why didn't this work? Like, okay, maybe this didn't work. What's another approach? Customer said A, they actually really meant B. How can we take that back and iterate on it? So I think there's definitely this piece. You want them to function and self-organized without necessarily your leader to be there to say, okay, you have to do this, you have to do that, because that's not scalable. And you really want your team to feed off of each other, and that's to see that. And we have that at our organization, or it's just, it makes me extremely proud when you say like, oh, look at them, or just off they go, and you don't have to worry too much. You do have to come back and check in on them. I'm not saying ignore them, but that they're organized in that way. And also, I guess a few of the things just be around, they take ownership over different areas. Everyone in my team, they have kind of like this core function that they do. So like, you know, the analytics engineer that Natalie Piegza she's one on my team. She's presenting yesterday. That her core function is like, how do we capture value from the data? But then she also does all our UI UX stuff, like, as kind of side. So we have all these people who have these other skill sets, and they feed into the team, uh, and and again, leading back to that high performance, they're able to do different things. They're able to see where each other's perspectives, even though they can't go build a web application, but they know what's kind of involved, and again, all towards building that product that's actually meaningful and useful to our customers. So I think that's definitely just a few of those things that come towards having this collaborative nature, within your team to be high performing.
Thank you, Michael, and all our panelists. That was a great kind of setting up a baseline. So just for the audience here to recap, like this was a great kind of way to start our baseline of what do we mean for today's session. Now let's get into some of the meat of the matter here. We really talked about some high level performance metrics. We talked about data teams, but we all know that it takes blood, sweat, and sometimes tears to make it happen. So let's start with the people aspect of it, right? People are everything is dependent on your people. So let's start with that. I'm going to ask a question that I think might be, near and dear to our audience here. What is your sense of data talent pool in, Calgary and kind of adjacent markets? What has been your experience hiring? What are some of the strategies you've employed, just to understand how you've gone about building your team? So maybe to start off with, Francina, if I can call on you, and then we'll come to our panelists.
Okay. I think Alberta has developed talent that is scarce in most other geographies, if I may mention. Even listening to the talks that were presented yesterday about the Alberta economy and stuff, there was a lot of emphasis being laid on data professionals clustering out in Calgary. It's like from the stats as well, you can see Calgary ranked second in the number of technology, engineering related occupations, 25th in the computer and information systems, and 46th in software development. So you can see on LinkedIn, day in and day out, there are so many positions open, and then still there are so many people still looking for positions, which means that of late, um, the data field has gained a lot of popularity, which is great because this gives rise to an ongoing progressing data culture, which I think will be the premise for creating data-driven insights and data-driven actionable insights that that all companies can use for business decisions and stuff. Um, if you go to the core and the need, if you want me to talk specifics, how many of these are actually what they say they are? Now that's a different question. There can be a lot of ideologies coming out from Juan and Michael, I'm pretty sure, because we are hiring, the company is constantly hiring, and we've been looking for the right fit. Getting the right fit is a totally entirely different situation when you look for, and that has to do very much with what exactly you're looking at the individual for, because you have a specific requirement in a particular position in the company. And as per your project progression, you're looking for someone who would fill a particular gap within the team that would be helpful for the rest of the team to actually jump up and move forward in those activities. And you're looking at a certain individual, I would say a unicorn maybe, that would actually fit in and get going. But then what happens is we get a lot of related response, a satellite kind of population, and picking and choosing one that actually fits into that mold can get a little bit how do I put it, challenging, so to speak, because it's very hard to determine which of these will actually move forward and be your star and the star worker in the team. But I eventually think that if you do have about 8 out of 10 points checked out, then it's very likely that that candidate will stand up to what your expectations were. And I think from this perspective, currently, it's not as difficult in other geographies to find a data professional in Calgary and Alberta as opposed to the other places.
Thank you, Francina, for your remark. I'm going to invite one of our other panelists to kind of comment on that. While we do that, we also have a question from a member of the audience. And Josh, thank you so much for putting a little bit of marker so we can read it easy. The question is about balancing kind of the scarcity of hiring an experienced data scientists who are in limited supply. And then, you have also, you can hire junior data science talent, but then you might have to train it up. So maybe if I can request JC for you to comment, in addition to what Francina has mentioned on the topic, how do you balance while you're doing this within the Calgary talent pool?
Sure, yes. Actually, that question is exactly what I was going to mention, because recently we went to the market to try to find some senior data science resources, data science and machine learning developers. And I found like you can find like senior seasoned data scientists. There's a lot of up and coming data scientists, like junior data scientists, right? That some of them have got some good experience, like engineering background that are transitioning to data science. Others are in transitioning their skills, right? So I feel like over the next couple of years, we're going to have a lot of good talent in Calgary, at least, or in Alberta. My experience has been positive. I feel like in our case, it's the overall value proposition for the organization, right? Initially, I knew that we were competing with big tech companies, but there's a value proposition, particularly from TC Energy, right? That looking for some use cases that can be even industry challenges, right? Because there needs to have that industry partnership in the energy industry to look for that. So that is really cool, And also, if somebody wants to go to where the operations are, you will always can do that too. Now, for us, the big balance is we have a build versus buy strategy. There's some talent that we know we need to bring externally, but we also have our internal talent that is just bubbling. I feel like there's a lot of untapped energy, not only within the organization, but also in the market. It's about finding the right person for the right role. We just implemented actually an internal rotational program that we are doing a pilot right now, and it's bringing people from different areas from the business into my team for about a year and a half. It's a rotation against different projects that come from different areas of the organization, and they're place them in a different business unit as a data scientist or as a developer. So it's about balancing and having that open conversation, right, with employees.
Thank you for your remark, JC. That's certainly an interesting way to kind of have some balance of bringing folks from the outside, as well as kind of keeping your in-house team and having that knowledge and domain expertise current. So let's keep the conversation going. The next thing that I heard, what I heard, thus far is you're all kind of invested in building an in-house data team as opposed to kind of outsourcing. And this is a really interesting, kind of decision. So maybe Michael, this time let's start with you. What's causing you to build that, in-house data team as opposed to outsources and let somebody else take care of it?
I'd say it's definitely a bit of experience that way, where we initially tried to outsource a lot of that, some of the building up and the putting up all our scaffolding, and I think it didn't work for us for many reasons to get into in that case. Why just bring in some external hires? They maybe lack the industry knowledge. They lack because we're we're just hiring, maybe we didn't put enough emphasis with them to partnership that actually build the things that we needed to build. Uh, and they're not necessarily as invested in the same way. And again, depends on the partner in that regard. So I think like just a few of these factors have really just made it so okay, we got to go in and do this ourselves. So we built up a team, really started kind of that junior and predominantly juniors and intermediates to get that started. Because yeah, like it is challenging to find a whole bunch of senior people. Um, and then it's almost like gold prospecting is kind of how I like to describe finding data professionals in general, or any professionals in general these days. Just because someone goes and completes a certificate doesn't mean that they're ready and employable in that regard. And that we augment our internal team with contractors and kind of our backbench. And that was really our intention, is that we, as we have use cases, we can ramp up and then bring on some people to work with us, and then they can you know send them off when we're done. One of our challenges is that we just keep ramping and we haven't stopped, which creates its own set of challenges in that regard. But yeah, I think that's definitely one of the reasons why we ended up going down the road of building things internal here. And I know we did. I guess it's a bit deviating from the question, but for the sake of it being a panel, a bit of conversation, I actually want to just like ask you, JC. You mentioned like this internal rotation program. You are trying to bring up other people from within your company. Our team was initially formed from a few pockets of us, and they're like, you do data stuff, like why don't you just have this data team and kind of get started. How have you actually taken that approach to sell it, and you said you're pulling people for a year, like what about their jobs that they were doing? Like how did you get that buy-in, and what are they going to be working on?
That is a really good question. Now, when we talk about building a high performance team, I feel like the high performance team is not only our core teams, right? For me, a high performance teams needs to have senior leader support, which is key, and the other having, I was going to say champions, but that is so 2018. So I'm going to say our influencers, which are senior leaders that know about data, or senior leaders that are technically enough that will give us the buy-in, right? So when we talk about the high performance team, we need those elements, right? We need to be able to get the buy-in from particular business. Not necessarily can be all the business, because there is a big cultural change that needs to happen and the right leadership support. No, we started with a couple of business units that were much more advanced in the maturity of advanced analytics and machine learning adoption. And as soon as we start proving the value, then the other businesses are coming. No, it's not easy. Back to your initial comment, like last sweat, tears, blood, right? There's a lot of effort there because it's a big change management, right? It's a big
Yes.
cultural aspect. And we talk about the secondments. It's not like a free path for everyone, right? We need to be able, because from my perspective, from my team, is a draw on time resources, right? So we need to ensure that the right candidate is selected. So there has to be a right leadership conversation, an employee conversation about performance, succession, readiness, ultimate potential, because at the end it's an investment that the organization is doing.
And like,
Thank
thanks
you,
for
Michael,
sharing that.
and thank you so much, JC. That was a great kind of sidebar on a very interesting topic. I'm going to actually pick a little bit more on that, and maybe I will invite Francina to comment. So we heard thus far that there's kind of two particular types of people. One is you have kind of your advanced or dedicated analytics professionals, and on the other side you have what are popularly called citizen data scientists. Over here at Data IQ, we are certainly seeing this evolution in our clients, in the industry, where you kind of need to invest in both. You need to invest in your analytics professionals, to help them understand your domain, your business expertise. But your citizen data scientists may kind of, could use their prior knowledge, but they may, need help in training some of the more DS specific stuff. So maybe Francina, can you talk a little bit about, or on the same theme that we discussed so far, what does investment look like in your organization about kind of the advanced data scientist, let's call them a dedicated analytics professional, versus say a more citizen data scientist?
Okay. I don't know whether I like the word citizen data scientist and advanced data scientist, but I'll go with it just for the sake of discussion. I believe I'm presuming when you say citizen data scientist, you're talking about analysts, analytics professionals actually working using AI models and a little bit of clustering, statistics, R language, and Python coding, etc., within the analytics, within the reporting and dashboarding. If that is the case, yes. For me, I personally believe that it's a 50-50 split. The reason being, like, if you remember what I said about fail fast, do more kind of situation, if you don't have the funnel coming in on the other side and you cut the funds on that side, then you're cutting whatever novelty that is coming into the actual productized versions of the data science as well. So you can't cut that off. But then you can't cut off the progress and the possibility of learning new techniques because the in my opinion, if you're not growing, you're dying. And I would always pledge that you constantly grow your skills. There are a lot of resources these days, thanks to the pandemic on this aspect, that everything is virtual. You can go to Udemy, Coursera. There are a lot of virtual. LinkedIn has a lot of courses as well. And there are a lot of people who actually push information, which is great. You have to wade through which is right and which is wrong, though you can't just take it as a face value, but then it gives you a good starting point to actually further your knowledge and get to that scope. So I believe that a 50-50 split and the way we have in Blackline, our team, it goes through a lot of stress all the time because we cater to a lot of clients. Now, when we say analytic professionals, we have 18,000 odd clients, and then we actually cater to all of their demands. So we are doing client-facing opportunities, operations, and maintenance. Plus, we are trying to bring about the new, innovative, and advanced analytic approaches. But then again, these have to turn into products at some point or the other. So it's the team is constantly evolving. I use the word evolving because the team takes study leaves every month that they use towards progressing their skill sets and careers. So most of it I emphasize on trying to build the gaps that they feel when they are working within the team, but then some of them could be on the innovative and creative aspects as well. So this gives a good leeway into leading into a path that can one day, I hope, in my vision, be a blended approach that you have two highways merging into one with the product sitting at the end. And when you exit, you know that the product is going to have the goodness of both fields together.
Thank you, Francina. And this is certainly an interesting approach. It sounds, without getting married to titles, I think this sounds certainly a very inclusive approach. To have multiple skill sets join. So we heard quite a few things on this topic of people. We talked about, bringing people from the outside, training up your inside, internal talent. How do you balance kind of the investment? Let's shift gears and talk a little bit about what makes those folks productive, right? Like the keyword we're talking about here is processes. We can talk about processes for everything from. Oh, sorry, is there anything? Sorry, Francine.
No, I'm sorry. No,
Okay,
I was going to be
just
muted.
want to make
Sorry.
sure.
I'm going to mute
Yeah, no
myself.
worries. So going back to that kind of comment, like processes are what make our people productive, right? Like if you can give them a good balance of something that helps them run forward but not bog them down with something. This is certainly, again, there is a balancing act there. So again, I want to invite our panelists to talk a little bit about what some of those things mean to them. And you're more than welcome to speak about you can talk about whether it's data science development processes. Agile tends to be a sometimes keyword, sometimes it's just agile. I really like Michael when we connected earlier. He used air quotes to kind of mention that. So there was that. You can even talk about some of the communication cadences, right? So how do you talk, between data teams and other teams within the organization? So maybe, Michael, let's start with you. What are some of those kind of processes that you've found to be most useful? And maybe while you're at it, if you can even share what doesn't work for you. So again, question is, what are some of the processes that you're putting together in place or have put together that help your data team be productive?
And what was mentioned is like I describe it as agile like, right? It's just a set of rules, and it's however you want to kind of apply them in terms of how you work. So really, like, what do we do to be more productive? Sorry, it's just a very open-ended question. If we really take that in a few different ways, I think in one aspect, we do follow an agile like methodology where we do sprint planning and sprint reviews and some backlog maintenance. And I'd say that really the color I will add around some of that is just that when we do sprint reviews, we have this internal, our team shares with each other. So the data engineers and the analysts and the software developers, we're all sharing the work that we've done together, and we can kind of get into the nitty gritty. And people might want to ask questions, maybe they don't want to ask questions. It's just kind of digest, and people just take that as information. Sometimes our analytics engineers we're talking about a very business focused problem, right? And that also provides context back to others who might not be touching something that is directly facing that customer at that point. Uh, this evolution kind of came out because we would do reviews with customers as well, and we still do that, but they're a little less technical in that nature. Again, really because they're really interested in that business outcome aspect. So we have internally we share things, and then we with our customers we're always sharing and having that constant feedback. And again, it's this nature of just how do we continue to be collaborative. We do different roundtables on a weekly basis where people can come forward, bring out problems, and people just talk through it. And initially, when we first started this more than a couple years back, it feels a bit awkward, right? When you're starting this this team out to do these things, and I'd really say it's about you want to create the culture that you want to have, and you want to have these people to contribute and really feed back into that. So this nature of how do people keep up to date in terms of what's going on? Is all the more important, especially during the pandemic when people didn't see each other anymore, right? Everything was remote, and then so you had to create these new avenues in which people were going to work together. And by having these times where people could talk about their problems, things get brought up around, oh, hey, you're going to implement this type of feature. Well, have you thought about ABC, how it interacts with the customer, how it interacts with the back end? And people are making each other better from that process. And everyone and anyone can talk to a customer. We're careful and manage. So not like everyone's just going to go ping them and whatever. We do manage that aspect, but it's not to say, oh, hey, data engineer, you stay in the back, right? Don't only this person talks to the customer. No, we'll bring them in, and again, everyone needs to make an impact at the end of the day, and see where that impact comes in, for their work to be more fulfilling and to better it. So I think that's just a small example or discussion around what's worked. And I mean, part of that is just we've iterated to it in that nature. We've a lot of things along the way didn't work, and I'd say that's just kind of where we ended up at.
Thank you, Michael. I heard a couple of things in there. I heard a roundtable. I heard sprint reviews, and certainly it seems like you've iterated within your organization to kind of figure this out. Maybe I want to see, check in with our other panelists. Are there things that maybe let's switch gear and look at it from a different perspective? Have you found some forms of communication or some processes that do not work for you? Maybe just to hear something that you have either tried or failed, or if you have a maybe philosophical or design stance that something doesn't work. Maybe JC, I'll call on you, and Francina, if you have any questions.
Yeah, sure.
We can jump in.
Yeah, yes. First, I wanted to follow up with the other comment we're talking about citizen development data scientists. I think that's a tricky word because to be a data scientist, you need to know statistics and you need to code, right? So as long as someone is able to learn that, then you can be a data scientist. No, I feel like for us, it's about how do we give exposure to the different roles. Data science is not only data scientists, right? We have machine learning developers, we have machine learning architects, machine learning operations, we have analytics translator, even machine learning project managers, right? So it's really open not only for technical people that have the statistical background or the coding background. It's about exploring and getting curious on that. So wanted to add that comment, no, about what hasn't been working. Yeah, we have been doing a lot of ideation sessions, education sessions. I feel like it's not about only going and just giving people, give me all your ideas, right? You need to direct the conversation. You need to ask the right questions. You need to understand what's the prediction, what's the hypothesis, right? A lot of the time people come with the end result in mind. And from a machine learning data science perspective, you don't know the end result because again, you start from the data up. No, so it's about having that. And for us, it's about also having the right framework, right? Let's bring the structure to this, and let's orchestrate the work, right? And what is working, then we can, there's a bit of an entrepreneur flavor, right? If we have, as soon as we have a use case that is in production, we try to look into where can we replicate this use case across the organization, and which are the areas that we want to start showcasing this, right? So therefore, all the different areas get curious about what's possible. And on the other time, it's also about communication, and it's about a holistic view of what's going on across the organization. Like if we have 5, 6 different NLP projects going on, then the question.
Oh no, we lost. We lost.
Oops, technology
That was an
sometimes,
interesting.
we're discussing technology, but sometimes it doesn't cooperate. Francina, while we're waiting for JC to join back, do you want to hop in, share any thoughts there?
Yeah, I think he started off the right thing. Literally, when the business people speak data language and data professionals speak the business language, I believe the data culture will start to flourish and everyone will understand exactly what it is. Second thing is ask the right business question. If you don't have a business question to start with, you don't have anything to work for. And the third thing is you have to be very clear from the business requirements. If you have sat into business requirements of client requirements and etc., you will understand that in a discovery call you will not get all the information. You don't really, what the client actually asks is not exactly what they want. And and if you sit through quite a bit, you'll actually see that if you put all of this together into one stretch and then try to present it back to them, it's an entirely different story compared to what they actually want to see. So what I mean by saying these things is that you need to listen a lot, and then you need to try to be able to frame a problem. You need to be able to understand and define what the problem situation is, and you need to be able to work above whatever there is that each person has been working through. A lot of time properly rushing into situations is not going to give you the right approach. These days everything seems to be urgent. I need it today, I need it tomorrow, and then you can't just promise quality if that is the case, because the process of data processing takes a certain amount of time. You can't just push things through, and you should be able to manage expectations and make sure that everything actually follows within the nearest possible time. And then you need to be able to give. I'm going to let Juan speak after this. You need to be able to allow people to do what they're best to do, and then and look at the problem from a big picture plus the focused view, and then go and attack the problem from all sides so that you can actually get to the core of it and then make sure that you get an answer to it. Juan, you were speaking on a very nice note. Please continue. I'll just let you speak.
Yes, again, my apologies if I haven't shared this. Like I'm actually in Lima, Peru right now, so that's why the connection is a bit bad. Yeah, I was mentioning that there's this alignment as we orchestrate use cases. We have this holistic approach. We need to look into the alignment at the project level, at the vendor level too, but there is a key alignment at the methodology and technology level, right? There's a big
Right.
opportunity about the overall data engineering, for example, aspect. How can we continue to update our patterns, our artifacts, right? How can we share the code, right? There has to be that openness and that ecosystem that allows for people to communicate, to share, and to learn from each other. Thanks.
That's right.
I'll just quickly add on to what both of them are saying. As we define what is like and that high performing teams, like how do people view us? And Juan's talking about this work pipeline. You got to steer that conversation. That's really where those MVPs, those minimum viable products, are so essential, right? Every sprint, we should be showing people, hey, that is that it? Does that make sense? And when you want to have these conversations, you show them what's possible and get them excited and be like, oh yeah, I want that. And 80-90% of the time, it's not an actual like data science-y problems. Well, it's just automation and data cleaning. But anyways.
That's
Michael,
a
you
really
actually,
good point, for this. Sorry, quick comment I wanted to make
no,
here.
please go ahead,
When
please.
we talk about the overall data pipeline, and all of that, it's about how we communicate that back, right, to our stakeholder, to the business.
Yeah.
Because sometimes they get excited about a use case, and back to your point, sometimes it's a data cleanup exercise. Sometimes it's a dashboard, right? And
Yeah.
sometimes we can't even do the project because there's no data available. right? It's about how we are able
Exactly,
to get
exactly.
really crisp on the business value proposition and also on the current state of the data. There are two words that I like to always mention. It's about readiness and interdependencies. Readiness meaning is this use case ready now, 6 months or a year? Because we also need leadership support and access to SMEs. And the other interdependency is, do we need to clean data? Therefore, we need 6 months of cleaning data. Do we need to
Yeah.
integrate the data? Do we need to bring the data into the data lake first? Do we need to implement a SaaS solution? So there is always this conversation about the timing on that one. Sorry, I just wanted to jump and make
That's
that
a
quick comment.
No, that's correct. And I want to add that's exactly what I mean by managing expectations. Because I think it's good to have a process, but not all processes actually hop from A to B and Z and things because the expectations are different because it's all about innovation. When the clients ask when new requests to see something new comes up, then you should expect some level of things that might not go exactly the same way that you would expect it to go. So all of those things also need to be put in place. And at the back end, like I said, the structure, the framework, there is a lot that is going there. If that is not straight, then the whole thing will fall flat.
Thank you all. This is actually my favorite part of the conversation where at some point I can, take my hands off the wheels and our panelists are having a great chat. So, lovely to see that. I just don't do it. I just want to do a quick check-in with our audience as well. There's lots of great discussion going on around here. So just like before, again, I want to encourage you, if you have questions, if you have comments, especially with questions, thanks, Josh, Little John, as you have done. But others, if you have any questions, please feel free to throw them in the chat. We'll, continue to monitor that. But let's pick on, something that we're already continuing and we kind of started touching on this. Which is, I want to call this, succinctly, artifacts of communication. So artifact, you all talked about. I think Michael, you touched on an MVP. I think both Francina and JC, you talked about whether it's a quick data cleanup. So what are some of those artifacts, or what forms of communication have you found working, right? And without this making this into like a very tech discussion, it could be a dashboard. Some organizations ship around Jupyter notebooks internally. Over here at Dataiku, we have certainly seen a lot of interest in our platform for exactly this type of reason, for strong collaboration. So let's maybe again come back to you, panelists. Like, what are some of those artifacts or forms of communication that you've seen? And everything from a tried and true deck to a fully functional web app. Like, everything is fair game. So I'll turn things over to you. If you have volunteer, we'll start with you, and then we'll again go around the table.
Yeah,
Let's start.
I can
Please
volunteer
go
to
ahead,
start.
JC.
No, I feel
Please.
like the communication will have different styles for different levels of leadership. Like if we give a Jupyter notebook to an ELT member or a director and above, they won't open, they won't know how to open that, no, and that's because they don't. It's too technical, right? For them, it's more like we can show them some markdowns in R, some Python visualization, but it's about the story. Give me the so what's, right? What do we do now? Right now what, give me those stories, give me the impact, show me the money, back to what we were talking. No, for the overall communication from our stakeholders in the business, it's about giving them ongoing status on where things are at and how it's showing. No, I like to share the, I mentioned in the markdowns, Jupyter notebooks. People like to see the data. People like to see the visuals, different slices and dices of looking the information. People like that. No, and I found that at a certain level of leadership, but it's also about now, okay, you're showing me all those fancy dashboards, crazy 3D dashboard. Now what? Right? What is that impact? How do you make that relation from the data into the business output or outcome? Right? So it's about making that. That is why when we're talking about the different roles, I found that the classic BA or that analytics translator, like I like to call it, is a key role because always to translate that business and technical piece, right? And always making that connection, right, to others.
What do you find that you're normally making for your customers? Like, how literate is? I mean, TC is huge, right? Like, so with your team, like, or the people you work with, how literate are they with that data? Like, are you just literally just making dashboards most of the time? Or are you
It
just
depends. Actually, no, even machine learning models, we did a sentiment analysis for a couple of groups too. So it really depends, right? So, but does people wants to get really deep into the details? Show me the algorithm or show me the script. Some yes, some not, right? So it really depends. And the thing is that I like it and I found it fascinating. Usually the working teams are different. Some businesses are again much mature, more advanced, so they like to insert some of the technical people and even some data science. So we have a hybrid model of my team data scientists, business data scientists, and working together. In other teams, they want the output, right? There's where the machine learning ops come into place to help troubleshoot and operate, enhance, and support, and they are more the receivers of that. So it really varies with the
Yeah.
organization, right? But I feel like the data literacy has increased a lot over the last couple of years. And I like to call it not only data literacy, I feel there's also data literacy systems and applications, right? Because a lot of people need to learn more about how to use different applications. And this is one of my favorite topics ever on data, right? The final product, the final output needs to be user friendly for the end user. 2 clicks or more, people don't use it. People go back to Excel.
Yeah, that's true. I'd like to add actually saying that it's like I'm presuming that all companies actually are focusing on data governance. This is where it'll actually comes into existence. Because if you have a data governance system in place, then you know that the data dictionaries are very well maintained. And if the data dictionaries are maintained properly, then you have a data catalog that the business I would say the senior management, the executive management has access to the data catalog, the business catalog versus the data catalog versus the data dictionary. So the business catalog, the way I see it, the data catalog actually is a mediator. A mediator is step between the business catalog and the data dictionary. You don't need to go into so many details like the Jupyter notebook. Which Jupyter notebook actually has it? What is the clustering model? What is the model? How many times it's trained? All of those details don't need to be present within the data catalog, but in the business catalog, when you actually look at the data catalog, can see things in the data literate language of the company, where the products are, where the products are going, which stage they are in, what stage of progress they are in, etc. So I would say if the governance is in place, then the cataloging and everything else is in place, and it's an updated state as is, then at any given point in time, if the executive member or the sponsor would like to see what's going on, if they just jump into the business catalog and see what the question was, where we are at, what are the blocks, what do we need to push through, and it'll be much easier for them to make a business decision based on where we are at the moment, as opposed to just giving them. I don't see giving a Jupyter notebook to somebody who's asked a business question, is it possible or not? I don't want to get fired. So this is, I think that's where I think my 2 cents lies.
Yeah, I think it really depends on where you're strategically what you want to be doing. Like we have a full-blown web app, we're adding stuff to it, and it's a very complex tool in a sense, right? They need to be able to do different things, and
Yeah,
so the users there, it's very defined, right? You don't want to just go building a bunch of stuff, especially in that case, because it's a lot more of an investment. We still also do some stuff in Power BI, right? Because if it doesn't need to be super powerful, Power BI is great at what it does, and every once in a while we'll just put things in spreadsheets for people, and because sometimes they
yeah,
just want to see a table, and that's fine. It really depends, but yeah, we have a
yeah.
gamut.
Yeah, actually, we do have those kind of situations as well. We do a lot of those ad hoc requests, as we call, a simple CSV export or something to immediately answer any question. So it's like a two-line conversation where everyone, transparency is the key. Everyone is on board with what is happening, and details are provided as is required, and troubleshooting different states of uh, of where the product lies, of the progress levels, is where I would go with actually.
That is a very good comment. Like transparency is key, right? And the
Yes,
other is, I will say, like know your end user, know your stakeholder, right? Again,
yes,
that the ML ops side, machine learning operations, is an area that is growing exponentially, right? And also, there's these classic build versus buy use cases, right? As soon as there's a use case that come to us, we go, this is a build versus buy. Because if it is a buy, we need to see how it will fit into our ecosystem. And that's a different architectural conversation. right? Not only about current but future state. But I agree with your point. Like transparency is key, and that is how you actually give mention. You give giving updates to our to the business stakeholders, and if you need to kill the project, or if there's not it's not a data science, it's advanced analytics or it's machine learning, then you just give that feedback back, right? But again, you need to show them that. We had a couple of use cases in a less mature business units that for them doing an statistical analysis was more than enough. We were able to show them some patterns, trends, correlations. We were able to look into the data in ways that they have never seen before. And for them, that was a huge win. Now, then as we transition the final product back to the team, for us now there was the educational component because now they want to update this every 6 months, every quarter with new data, right? So there's opportunity to upskill the receiver front of that too.
Thank you, JC. I'm just going to intervene here for panelists. I'm really happy to see all of our panelists. There's a great discussion going on. Time flies when everybody's having fun, and we're just past the 1 hour mark here. We do have a couple of questions. JC, your remark about, or sorry, I think was it Michael, 2-click and they go back to Excel. That certainly resonated with our audience. And we also have a couple of questions coming in. So maybe what I want to encourage is at this point we're past the hour mark, so maybe we can shift more to audience-driven questions, and we can start taking some of those. So I'm going to tee up the first question that has come from Tiago Valentin. So thank you, Tiago, for your question. And I'm going to read it out verbatim. Could you weigh in on an organizational structure for data science teams? And the options here are centralized, decentralized, hybrid. And how do you use it, for the reporting structure, in the models? Like, what does it mean for a data scientist to report one group to another? So do we have a potential volunteer from our panel to address this question?
Yeah, I can mention that. Like I've seen different models. Like it really depends on what the org structure is able to absorb or adopt, right? It really depends more about how agile and flexible your organization can be. At TC Energy we have a centralized team, which is my team, but then we have data analytics teams within the different business units. Right. Again, each one of the business units in a different state of maturity. Therefore, some of them you will find data scientists, in others not. But they will always have that liaison. No, we are actually inserting in some areas a SWAT team of data scientists from my team just to be able to advance more with different use cases. But it really depends, right? It really depends the current org structure and how flexible it can be to adopt. The reason why there are data analytics teams in the business because they have the business knowledge, the processes, the data knowledge. They become the SMEs. We became not only the technology SMEs, but then the discipline of data science. And I was mentioning before about that alignment at the project level. There's an architectural alignment, there's a developer alignment, and there's a data science alignment. So we are becoming this. It started with the data science practice, machine learning lab is becoming more a data science COE, where we want to have this repository, and hopefully we're going to start getting also more into the future, right? More like an R&D type of structure too.
Michael, Francine, anything to add?
Yeah, I think I would go with the hybrid approach. I actually agree with what Juan said. In our organization, technically, I think it also depends upon how big the organization is. As it grows up in the startup level, you can have a centralized kind of a location, which is what we had. But then when the organization grows and then you have a growing level of clientele, and then you have a lot of product analytics, because a few of those analytics reports actually add value to the devices and stuff. For example, at Blackline Safety, we are a soup to nuts kind of company. We actually manufacture devices that help in gas detection and keep workers safe. So there we have several kinds of alerts and alarms that make sure that the worker is actually out of the gas explosion state. And then it gives you a proactive approach about fall detection. If somebody is exposed to a highly toxic gas and is not able to do, then the alert will go off if there is no motion. And then the next line of defense, like the as per the alert profile, and the people are contacted and they are moved to safety. So we have a lot of these clients actually use these analytics as a basis of trying and understanding what is going on with the device, as to the location, as to the in the last 2 years we had a close contacts report which actually told them about social distancing and whether or not they are in the right location and what they are doing, etc. So what I mean to say is that as the clientele grew, then the level of work gets focused into product analytics versus business analytics. And then if you look at the new upcoming possibilities of clients adding up, they have several different questions because the ones that are using the currently available what we call the essential suite of reports versus the ones that have specific requests, such as custom requests and the evaluations per se pertaining to whatever their requirements on their sites and production levels and their levels of working with the device, etc., is concerned. Now, we utilize all of those things. We have custom approaches for custom development, which is the business analytics case. So we use all different kinds of hybrid approaches. Like I said, ultimately, the analytics products we use prematurely. We actually use Power BI. We've been using it. It's been working fine, both for the external clients as well as internal. But Power BI has its own limitations, and we are really running into the limited aspects of it right now. So it is possible that we'll be growing out pretty soon, but at the moment it works fine. It works fantastic, and right now there is a possibility that there will be. I wouldn't say totally decentralized, but it's a little bit of a quasi decentralized kind of approach that is being applied. So my vote would be towards a hybrid approach where you can have a portion of the team actually be focused on because of the density of um, questions and comments and requirements for operations maintenance is required for the product analytics section, that you have a focused product analytics group and a business analytics groups that will cater to the rest of moving the business forward in the cycle that we want to move forward to.
Thank you, Francina. And I think we've certainly heard some, themes from both of you around hybridization of the teams.
Yeah.
You have part of the teams acting as a center of excellence, centrally located, while you have other data teams. And this is the kind of classic hub and spoke model that seems to be evolving in most organizations. Michael, is there any other commentary you would add on this topic?
Not too much. I mean, we were decentralized, we became centralized, and now we're trying to build up everyone else again to be capable to really scale. So I think that, again, it's just maturity.
Thanks so much, Michael. So hopefully, Diego, that gives you some flavor of how our panelists are weighing in on the question you asked around organizational structure and how do you see kind of the reporting impact. Let's go over to the next question, this time again from our friend Josh Littlejohn. Thank you again for identifying your question. The question is, how do you justify the ongoing funding of a data science team in a tangible way? Particularly, he's referring to ROI. And the situation is, especially when some data science projects might take a long time to manifest result, really, this is about, how do you justify the existence of the team? So maybe, Michael, we start in reverse order. We'll start with you, and then we'll again go back to our other panelists.
Yeah, no, this is something that's obviously very near and dear. It's always around the needing that justification route, and I'd say it's a balancing act. There's no easy answer to this type of question. You're needing to work with your customers and heavily prioritize what you need to be doing. We service an internal company, right? TransAlta's power generation. We service them. So it might be a bit different than kind of an answer you might get from Francina. Uh, but for us, like, okay, how do we justify what we do? How do you keep funding a cost center? We look at everything we do. What's the value of it? How many dollars are we getting back? How many hours are we getting back? Are we saving money? Are we making new money or helping make new money? Right? And we track all this stuff, and we are very very focused, and we will prioritize and be ruthless around the different work that we do, and we work with our customers, but we also push them at the same time to justify the things that they need to do. We work with them to do that. We don't just say, hey, you let us know, and otherwise good luck. You'll get some of our time or not. But yeah, it's definitely around like, okay, A or B, you only got so many time so much time and resources. And if the value's there, we'll go and invest in it. We'll grab someone from the bench. We'll hire some contractors. We'll have some of our team, and just to add some muscle. But again, it's an always justification thing that we're doing, and we track, like, 2 years ago we delivered this much dollars, and it was recurring. It's one time. Last year we did this much recurring one time, and it's always juggling and going forward, especially ML projects, right? We've talked lots, and shouldn't be new around that. It could take 6 months, it could take a year before you actually get anything valuable out of the ML projects because of how you iterate. And that's really where, again, you have to be ruthless around what you're delivering. What is that MVP, and what's good enough? Is it just some statistics like Juan mentioned, or something more advanced?
Thanks, Michael. JC, may I come to you next for maybe a comment on the ROI and the justifications?
Yes, it's all about the business value proposition, right? Around what I was mentioning before, the timing and the readiness. Like if we find like there's a use case that is going to help the organization save $10 million, but we need to invest 500K on cleaning data, then you just calculate your ROI, right? Again, it's getting really crisp in that. Is it cost saving? Is it cost avoidance? Is it risk mitigation? Is it process improvement? Those KPIs needs to be really clear, and then the transparency and communication.
Thank you, JC. Francina, anything you would add on this?
Yeah, I'd like to add just one point. Yes, ML projects actually take a long time to actually manifest, but then you also have to remember that if you don't have ML projects, you're just putting out fires. You don't have any long-term project. You don't have anything else to see in the future as well. So, like I had mentioned, we do have what we call advanced analytics and augmented analytics. We do use portions of these ML ops, statistical analysis, etc., on our day-to-day related analytics reporting structures, so like predictive uh, stages of analytics, when the alert goes off, what the alert goes off, what is the timeline, what is the general availability of staff when that goes on, when is the time that the staff needs to be attended to, etc., etc. All of these are ML, but these are marketed as analytic projects and analytic dashboards and reports. But we do have several dedicated ML projects that are going on the streamline. Like I said, if we do not have any, then we don't have innovation. We're killing innovation. We can't do that. We can't kill away creativity and intuition as well, because we need to have that ongoing, always and every time. But it's the need to manage expectations, to let people know, to let the have the business case and sponsor buy-in and expectations to be managed at all levels, so that they expect that this project will take this much of time if they need it in this particular fashion. In the meantime, can we use those learnings that we get from there in different aspects in the ongoing projects or the products that are already in this queue for a productized version? Yes, we can. Then, in that case, does that add to the ROI value? It depends upon how you calculate the ROI value. So, um, my answer is not very different from what Michael and Juan said. It's just a matter of perspective. It's just a matter of managing expectations and seeing how we can actually push this through. As a hybrid approach, I am totally in for a hybrid approach, as you can see.
And I want to promise the audience, we didn't agree to agree. This just happens to be a case of great minds think alike. So, all of the folks here seem to be agreeing. I haven't seen any questions come in. We still do have a little bit of time. So if any member of the audience wants to throw in the questions, please feel free. But while we're doing that, I'm also going to start suggesting that we look towards summarizing, so that, we went through a lot of different topics. I imagine as part of our audience, there's multiple different kinds of people, everybody from an individual contributor who's looking to be one of these, part of one of these teams, an aspiring manager who's looking to build and scale their, team, or even a seasoned leader who's looking to pick up a tip here or there to really kind of take their game to the next level. So maybe we're going to go around the table one final time, and maybe I can ask all of our panelists. Can I maybe ask you, we covered different aspects, right? We started with what, performance metric, ROI, process. can I maybe ask you to say, three pieces of advice? They could be do's, they could be don'ts. What are some of the advice that you have for a member of the audience who is looking to kind of, build a high performance data team? So maybe this time, JC, we'll start with you, and we'll kind of go. You all appear kind of counterclockwise on my team, so let's start
Sure,
with
yes.
JC.
Yes, I would say like we always talk about innovation, and innovation, data are really, really close together. Innovation starts with I, right? A lot of people tell me like, how do I get into data analytics, data science? So again, innovation starts with I. What can I do in my current role? What can I automate? What process improvement can I add? For me, every dashboard in the organization should have a forecast predictive model, right? That's how you start moving the needle into advanced analytics and start maturing your journey. So I will say like start with your current job, start with your current role, and then start being curious. Always be curious about that.
That's great advice, JC. Starting with your home field advantage and doing what you know best, and that's a really great advice. Let's maybe go to unless JC, if you have anything else to add, let's maybe go, Michael, to you. What is your list of do's and don'ts? And again, you can go up to three. Let's see what you got.
Yeah, I think as someone that was looking to always hire, or well, I always feel like I'm hiring to some extent. Put your best foot forward around you want to put your best foot forward when you're applying to a position. So like I mentioned earlier in the presentation, don't just assume that because you have a certification that you're ready. How do you prove that you are? You and 100 other people have also completed that certification. How can you stand out? How can you have like a little portfolio, share what you've done, and be ready to talk to it? And, you want to be part of that high performing team, right? We want to have you. So how do you prove that you are that individual? And I think from a leader standpoint, I think it's just really about creating a safe space for people again to come back and contribute together. You want to make the culture that you want to have, sorry. So as a leader, how do you foster it? And as a team member, how do you contribute into that culture? Don't just sit there and not say anything. How do you put your voice out there to make the environment you want to be in? We do roundtables. We force everybody to talk to an extent, and that really helps get some of our introverts going in that regard. And be aware of your biases. You want to hire for diverse personalities and diverse skill sets, and don't be afraid to take a chance on people. And you're not always going to be right, and that's just the reality. Is 80-90% of the time you're doing well, then that's good.
Right. Thanks, Michael. And Valentina, before I come to you, just as an FYI, if there's a way you can incorporate answer or maybe give a separate answer, a member of the audience, again, Tiago Valentin has a question. Any advice on specific data science methodology? I think Crisp DM is the one that he mentioned, might work for certain projects or not. But again, feel free to keep like either general advice or cover this, or we can come back to another panelist. So again, I'll turn things over to you. Any advice for our esteemed audience for building high performance data science teams?
I would say we're always looking for a team player who will join the team that's already performing. You don't want to be a disruptor. You want to be someone who has the attitude of actually learning, and you should have the basic knowledge of programming languages and hands-on development skills if you're coming in as a developer, or you should have performed in a team environment if you want to foster newer interactions and be able to excel in what you're doing. Like I said, put your best foot forward, give it your all. Persistence and resilience is very important because projects will get challenging. That's not the time to run. That's the time to actually put more effort and try and see how you can work things out. You should be able to define a problem. You should have critical skills. You should be able to bring uh, business requirements into technical perspectives and vice versa. So you're able to answer questions and you know why you're doing what you're doing, which is always very helpful to know where you're going and be able to do what you want to do. And above all, through the question that's asked, with the information that you have, and with the work that you're doing, are you able to tell a compelling story of what you find? So that even if it's an incomplete story, if you can tell a story, It's easy to fill in the gaps because we have a whole team behind you, like an army, that we can make sure that the whole thing actually works fine. Well, if any of these qualities are uh, paraphrase who you are, then we're certainly looking for you to come and join the team.
Thanks so much, Francina. Anybody want to give quick thoughts to our question from Tiago around specific data science methodologies, ChrisTM or others that you might have tried?
I don't have any, I guess, anything specific to throw out there. Really depends on
Yeah, I would
what
say.
you're doing.
It will depend on the use cases, but particularly
Yeah,
Which is a
on the
terrible answer, but also
yeah.
an answer.
it's actually the practical answer. It depends upon the use
That's
case.
true.
It's not one size fits all kind of situation. I think most of the time you will end up using the basics of training, categorizing, classifying, see where you stand, which model it fits into, what angle you need to do. Maybe you already have a methodology that's set, so you would just have to improvise it and move it, get it moving. Or if it's not there, then you have to find something new. Like I said, it's a use case. It depends on the question.
Okay. Thank you so much to all our panelists. So to sort of bring it all home, I know we covered a lot of topics. Tiago, hopefully that gives you, unfortunately, this is one of those it depends answer. And I would 100% agree with, all of our panelists here, both through my career as well as our experience. As Dataiku is an all-in-one data science platform, we get to see a cross-cut of clients across different industries. And I would 100% echo with the knowledge that's been shared through the forum today. Everything from how do you source talent, how do you kind of build, some of these teams' culture. And if I picked up one key theme, it was around you always got to start with some kind of basis, but you got to be very pragmatic. You got to evolve. You got to show resiliency and really help your team get to the next level. So I really want to thank all of our panelists. Bring your time here, share all of your expertise and insights.